What we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness. But is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
Thank you very much. Sheri and Howard Schultz don't do this often. We really appreciate that you would come here for this and to be honored. Sheri and Howard, but with Sheri as president, 20 years ago started the Schultz Family Foundation, and it's been under the radar to some extent. You haven't talked about it much. So in some ways we hope this will be a public unveiling, both of the Schultz Family Foundation, but of all the things that you're fighting for now in terms of veterans, opportunity youth, and healing the divisions of America. Sheri was a child of Ohio and has led a distinguished career, especially in reinventing philanthropy. Everybody knows that Howard Schultz was raised in a housing project, the Canarsie Bay, is it the housing project? Canarsie Bay House. That's a Louisiana pronunciation of Canarsie. Canarsie Bay Housing Project. Bob told me about his background there. Later on, went to Starbucks and then decided that you could run it better, and you took it over, and you've made it not only a great corporation, but a socially responsible corporation. So let me, if I may, begin with you, Howard. That video is something, you show things like that at your annual meeting. Why do you do things like that? I mean, what's the point of showing it at the annual meeting? What are you trying to do with your corporation?
Well, first off, on behalf of Sheri and I, thank you for inviting us here. This is not an easy thing for Sheri and I to do. We're humbled by it, and we appreciate the opportunity. Our annual meeting as a public company for 24 years has been quite different. We get thousands of people coming, and we've always used those meetings as an opportunity not only to talk about the fiduciary responsibility we have as a company, but more importantly, the understanding that a business can be best when success is shared, and a business can be best when there's social impact. I specifically chose that speech, which many of you in the audience who are of my age recognize that in 1968, Robert F. Kennedy stood on the back of a flatbed truck in Indianapolis when there were riots in the street across the country as a result of the assassination of Martin Luther King. And he comforted that city and comforted a nation. But what I wanted to do, more than anything else, was given the vitriol, the hatred, the division, I wanted to try and demonstrate to young people across the country, as well as our shareholders, I wanted to show them what civility looks like, what authentic leadership looks like. I think never before in my lifetime have we had such a dire need for servant leadership, for authenticity, and I think we all recognize, regardless of your political persuasion, that the country has gone in a direction in which we're on a collision course with time. And there's a great, great need that we all have for truth, for authenticity, for compassion and empathy, and that speech, I think, is emblematic of that. And unfortunately, Robert F. Kennedy did not live to live out his dreams of what he could have done as President of the United States. But in my view, as we sit here tonight, the country is in such, I think we're suffering. I think we've lost our conscience, and I think we are in great need of the kind of leadership that Robert F. Kennedy showed that night. And I think we're all looking for that, not only the next president, but in every community across the country.
You know, there've been talk, thank you very much. There had been talk that even you know, people were pushing you, an outsider at times to run for president. We saw how Donald Trump came in from the outside. There was
That looks like it's going well.
well, but when you try to think that through, you probably thought that through a year ago, and you may think it through a year from now. How do you think through the process of, okay, our politics and our politicians are broken, maybe it's time to try to start something new?
Well, you know, I said to you earlier that I hope you'll forgive me if I say things that are controversial in nature. So I'm an optimist. I love and admire the country. I owe the country a great deal given my upbringing. But I would say, as an outsider looking in, that we are a nation in which the government and the leadership of people who are elected to represent us, not only the last 4 years and not only the last 8 years, but 20, 30 years have gone by in which false promises have not been realized, and we have been in a situation where I think we have not gotten the truth with a capital T. And that has resulted in people being so disenfranchised and so dissatisfied. So the question I ask myself is, can somebody, whether you're coming from the inside or the outside, overcome the significant obstacles and hurdles of a corrosive situation that is carcinogenic as a result of the fact that we can't even, at its core, get rid of assault rifles in this nation, when the majority of people in America realize that this is absolutely inconsistent with the humanity of the country, but one lobbying agency, one single lobbying agency, is controlling the country. And I think when you look at that on its face value, the question that I ask myself is, can somebody, whoever it might be, have the power, the influence, the leadership to circumvent years and years and years of bad policies and, in a sense, corruption and complicitness on behalf of elected officials? And the thing that I would just ask rhetorically, and I think the answer that will be very clear, is how many of our elected officials in Washington recognize, whether they are Republicans or Democrats, represent the people of America, and how many of them literally put their feet in the shoes of the American people? And the answer, unfortunately, is de minimis. And so the question you're asking me is certainly a question I've asked myself, but my concern is about the system and whether or not the system can really be changed as a result of a single person, given how corrosive it's become.
What have you learned from running Starbucks? You could please apply. That helps you understand the type of governance we should have in this country, or the type of values we should have?
Well, our company, you know, when you think about it, we have 25,000 stores in 73 countries. We serve almost 100 million customers a week. But the core foundation of our company is our culture, values, and guiding principles. In 1987, when we had 11 stores, we decided early on that we were going to build a different type of business model in which we were going to achieve the fragile balance between profit and conscience. And that meant that we were going to give ownership to every employee. We were going to give
Every barista is an owner of Starbucks?
Every single person at Starbucks who works 20 hours or more, which is 95% of the people, is an owner at Starbucks globally. We created comprehensive health insurance 30 years before the Affordable Care Act. This past year, we gave college achievement, in which we give free college tuition of 4 years to every single person. And I think all these things, you know, we're not smarter, we're not better, we're a coffee company. But all these things are based on recognizing that culture and humanity is what drives decisions and drives what we are trying to do. And I think what we try to do is recognize we are a performance-driven company through the lens of humanity. And I think going back to Washington, when I look at the decisions that are being made and the divisiveness and I think the complicitness, and I think the lies and the lack of truth, is the humanity of the nation has been stripped as a result of the fracturing of leadership.
Sheri, 20 years ago, you helped launch, or you launched the Schultz Family Foundation, right? And 1996, I think it was. Tell me how it's evolved and what you've learned through this journey.
When we first started the foundation, I don't even know that I would call it a foundation. I think it was responsive giving, you know, seeing incredible needs in the community and people that needed help, grassroots organizations that I think lifted people's spirits and gave them hope. And I think our foundation honestly started in a van. The very first time I went out into the community, the way I wanted to go out was to give at-risk or homeless youth some hot meals, socks, and clean needles. And I think I was intimidated for sure, but I remember this moment when a young boy looked at me with incredible eye contact and said, thank you. I'm so grateful. It's so cold outside. And I saw my son. And so that was really the beginning, the impetus of coming back to Howard and saying, we can do responsive giving, but strategically over time, we have to figure out where some of the needs in the community, what are some of the greater needs in the community, and do we have the capacity to change?
And you've been very hands-on. You've been at the street level. You don't do it from a corner office. And you told me recently about being at a homeless shelter that you're helping to support. It's a story about an alarm clock, which actually affected me.
So I go to different agencies, both in the Pacific Northwest, but also nationally. And I have dinner with them, we cook dinner together, I learn a little bit about how their agencies support them in the different shelters that they're in and how they, you know, the work that they have to do in the tough love stuff in order to be able to move forward with their lives. And it was getting close to Christmas, and so I was in one particular shelter at the time, and I said to the group of kids, okay, it's Christmas and I'm Santa. You can make a request. You can, you know, let's not get carried away, which they could. But I said, you know, make a request and I will do everything I can to try and help you with the gift, knowing that there was nothing else they would be getting. And a young man came up to me privately later and said to me, is it possible that he could get an alarm clock? Now, I said, sure. I mean, do you want music in it? Do you want, you know, you want to be able to connect an iPod to it? Not, you know, I'm not seasoned enough yet to understand what that alarm clock actually meant. The alarm clock was the critical piece of material that this young man needed in order to show up every day to the homeless shelter for school, to take a shower, get a hot meal, and then get into the barista training program. And if he missed a day, there would be repercussions. That's what he needed, an alarm clock.
Well, thank you. You know, the at-risk youth or opportunity youth is a program we've been talking about because whether it's My Brother's Keeper, which we were talking about, certainly I think Stephen Patrick, there he is, Stand Up Stephen runs with Melody Barnes, our opportunity youth program. Most of you know about Raj. Is Raj here? Yeah, Raj is on the way back there, couldn't get a seat. Raj Vinakata, who runs our youth engagement program where the Aspen Institute is trying not just to have discussions, but turn thought into action with youth engagement. But it all ties together into this notion of the at-risk or opportunity youth. I think there was a video. Let me play the video, and then I'm going to have you discuss it a bit.
It's billed as the biggest corporate campaign ever to hire disconnected youth.
Organizers are pulling out all the stops to create an atmosphere of celebration. Think of this as a jobs fair on steroids.
I just turned 16 and I'm trying to get a job. I'm trying to get something going with my life.
So I'm looking for my first job here. I did schedule an interview already.
My goal today is to reach out to as many organizations as possible and create an opportunity for myself.
When you put in the work today, what you put in today is what you're going to get out of today.
Our future is starting today. This is life-changing. They coming to see y'all and make that change.
There's JCPenney doing makeup. Nordstrom is offering fits for suits.
You're able to do your resume here. You're able to talk to the on-site job recruiters.
You can get really informed around here. There's a lot of resources.
People really care, you know. They want you to get a job. They want you to be employed.
All of you have the potential to realize that your dreams can and will come true.
I got the job. I got the job. I didn't expect to come here and get a job. It was on the spot.
We both got jobs today. Same place. Same place. Starbucks.
Go pursue your passions with all you got. Y'all will change the world.
I'm happy. I'm satisfied, you know, because the job is a blessing. You know, it's a moment to move forward.
Let me ask both of you, starting with Sheri, to talk about Onward Youth and the 100,000 Opportunities Program.
Well, we began to understand that the fastest growing population in America is called Opportunity Youth. At one time they were named at-risk youth, but we realized they were tremendous assets, so the name changed to Opportunity Youth, a group of young children who, between the ages of 16 and 22 that are not in school, have dropped out of school, and they're not working. With the population growing at leaps and bounds like that, we wanted to get under the surface to understand what we could do to change that narrative. And one of the largest ways to reach groups of kids was to do a job fair. And the first one was in Chicago. I think Howard and I were both incredibly excited and surprised because by 8:45 in the morning, the kids that you think don't want to work, the ones couch surfing, the ones that have dropped out of school because you think they're just not engaged, they were in their Sunday best waiting at the door, 5,000 of them. And the doors open and they came in and it was electric. It was better than anything I'd ever experienced before, and it was all about hope. It was all about that they knew they were going to be seen. And I'll let Howard tell a little bit about what happened at the fair in terms of what are some of the services that we offered there.
Oh, I think once we started planning this job fair, I realized that Starbucks not only couldn't carry the load ourselves, but we needed other companies to come with us to provide other services and obviously other opportunities. We were able to convene 40 like-minded companies. We showed up at McCormick Place. Every company had a booth. And I remember as I was walking around the show, there's so many moments where you're reduced to tears because you see things that are not part of your everyday life. And I walked into the Macy's booth next to the Nordstrom booth. And what's interesting is two companies that are in a sense competitors, but in this case agnostic, just working together to help a child. Nordstrom provided the clothes, and Macy's, the kid in the booth, went into the Macy's booth, and I'm watching this unfold, literally to learn how to make a tie. And he's in the mirror. Learn how to make a tie.
Tie a tie.
Yeah, to tie a tie.
Yeah.
And no, not make a tie, tie a tie.
Actually, Steve told me the story too. So it's actually interesting because we forget that sometimes you need to learn these skills. Go ahead.
But the point is that I watched this kid who had a very low self-esteem. You can just see it. He was embarrassed to look at himself in the mirror. Once he learned how to tie that tie, he just had different posture. He walked out of that situation, and all of a sudden, he was ready for an interview. And it's very hard for all of us who live a very different life to really have the empathy and the compassion because we don't see these things every day. The other side of this coin, and these are dire statistics, is that a young black male child born in America today has a very, very tough road. 1 out of 3 young black males born today will be incarcerated by the time they are 17. A young Hispanic, 1 out of 6 will be incarcerated. Now, I tell you these statistics because we speak about American exceptionalism. We speak about the promise of America. We speak about the American dream. For the promise of America and the American dream to avail itself to all of us, we will not be in a position if the country is so divided and leaves so many people behind because of a lack of hope and opportunity. And I wish that all of you could walk through these shows with us and see the talent, the passion, and also the waste that we have in our system as a result of not utilizing all of this talent to the best of their ability. And all they want, more than anything else, is a door to be opened and an opportunity to present themselves.
How do you take it beyond jobs fairs and make this a larger movement?
Well, I think the challenge for us right now is we've had 4 job fairs in Chicago, Phoenix, Los Angeles, and Seattle. They're quite expensive to produce, and it takes an army not only to produce it, but to staff it. So now we are engaged in the task of digitizing this and to create an online opportunity so that there will be a complete open system. And we're working with a force of nature, and that's the president of Arizona State University, Michael Crow. We're working with other people as well who have joined with us, who recognize that the job fairs is just the beginning. And we're working with 40 like-minded companies who feel like we do, that this is something that we have to do. This is our calling.
Go ahead, Sheri.
I would say, just going back to the job fairs, these are not job fairs the way you would expect them to be. 30% of the kids that show up at these fairs have already worked with agencies that are in the cities where we go into. And so they're job prepared. They're ready to do their first interview. But 70% of the kids end up through social media, friends, cousins, aunts, someone down the street, a recruiter. They figure out or find out about the job fairs which they come to. Now, when they walk into these job fairs, there's everything there that you wouldn't even think about, but what they need. So kids exiting foster care might need to be able to get a Social Security number in order to sign up for an interview. You've got I call them children, but young people that might have minor records and they need expungement. They need help in moving from one step to another so that they're job ready. But I think one of the most exciting pieces of the fair are called mock interviews. Now, I don't know how many people of you in the audience remember your very first job, but I guarantee you that when you probably did that interview, you were as bad as I was. These mock interviews that are at the fairs allow these young people to understand what would be expected of them, how to conduct themselves, how to tell their story, how to show their resilience and their compassion and their commitment to move forward with the company and give it everything they've got. And once they finish their mock interviews, they are ready for a real job interview. I walk through the fairs all through the day, but by the end of the day, there's incredible stories. You'll see a young man coming out of Nordstrom booth, and he's got the job, and you see him just like putting his hands up in the air, and then he bends down and he kisses the grandmother in the wheelchair. Now, these are families that depend on each other if they're intact, and so these kinds of fairs provide incredible hope and opportunity for those jobs to become the next job and the next job, and they find success sometimes for the first time in their life, and it is incredibly heartening.
You spoke about the dysfunction of government and how it just We just don't have government that reflects a social contract, to use something Madeline has been talking to us about today, a social contract that says, here's what we owe each other, government to people, people to government. And one way you've gotten around it, I think, is that you realize the private sector has to step up at the moment when we're so dysfunctional. This is our last video, but it's a video I loved, so I wanted to show it, which involves the private sector. And then I'd ask you.
What is the role and responsibility of a for-profit public company?
This is an announcement that just came down from Starbucks here in the United States. What they are doing is they've teamed up with Arizona State University. And if you are a Starbucks employee, you get tuition paid for.
It's not common, you know, to make it through the east side of Long Beach, to go all the way to the South Bay, to managing a $32,000 a week business. That's unheard of. You don't make it through where I come from. I did have a difficult childhood. I moved around a lot. I always had this level of responsibility that a lot of my peers and friends didn't have. So I've always been a natural-born leader. I remember when I got my benefits. I remember when I got my first paycheck. I was feeling like I can provide not just for myself, but for my two younger sisters. I am 31. I'm not in debt. I'm going back to school. It's free for my company. I have my own place. I'm not yearning for a home anymore. I finally found where I belong.
I think it's time that we all recognize that, and I know you know this, and you speak about it a lot. The country's having serious problems. People are being left behind.
This country? How dare you, sir?
Yeah. And
you've got some venti balls, my friend.
You can say that you appreciate the veterans who have served our country, but Starbucks is doing more than that. They are giving returning veterans a job.
Being a military spouse at Starbucks, it's really rewarding because you develop a family through the military, but you also develop a family through Starbucks.
As I move through the next chapter of my life, it's been great having Starbucks there to support me.
Happy Veterans Day, everybody. I just want to thank you all the veterans from the bottom of my heart, for giving your time and your life for this country. We thank you, we love you. And I'm dedicating this one for you. I want you to stay. I want you to stay.
I was going to work and only my store manager knew I was homeless. Throughout the day, I'd be okay. I'd be able to like stomach through it, but at night when it's like time to go to bed, that's when it all hit me like I'm sleeping in a shelter. And I remember there were days where it was just devastating for me. Like it was really, really hard just going to work. It really wasn't until I had a customer who came in, and she was normally a jolly customer, and she came in that day and she was very down, and she was like, oh, you know, I'm just going through a lot. My father has cancer. And in that moment, I was so touched by her because I felt like, just like her, no one knows what we're going through. I got her card and we all signed it. It's like, from that moment, I knew I want to be at Starbucks. I was about 4 months into the company at that time, and 2 months later, I actually got promoted to supervisor. I had never been responsible for anyone. I was just starting to become responsible for myself. I started planning, like looking for apartments because I knew as soon as I got that, I would be making enough to be able to support myself. Well, my manager told me about the CUP fund, so I called them. They sent an application, I filled it out. I think within 1 to 2 days, I had a check delivered to the store. I gave that to my landlord with my savings, and I was able to move in. I think that was one of the first times where I was just like, anything's possible. Finally, I have a home, and it was amazing. It was like, I have a home, I have a great career going on. Like, I'm loving life right now.
We all have dreams for ourselves, our families, our kids. And I can tell you that for a kid from Brooklyn, on the other side of the tracks, my dreams have come true. But I have bigger dreams for Starbucks. And for you. And for your families. But I can't do it, and no one can do it alone. We have to do it together.
I want to say that we're the ones who wanted to show that. I know it seems like a bit of a Starbucks thing, but the reason I wanted to show it, I mentioned Secretary Albright talking about a social contract. Part of the social contract used to be the alignment of companies with their workers, their employees, working together. As you look at tackling the problems of this nation, what is the role of companies now in looking at the longer term and being more socially engaged?
And let me answer that through the lens first of the country, and then I'll get back to I think the country is in need of both an economic and a moral transformation. And I think on a parallel track, I think corporate America is in need of its own transformation, recognizing that chasing profits as a primary goal is a pretty shallow objective. And you're not going to be able to create a great enduring company in which people attach themselves to it unless there is more to the reason that the company exists. I am also encouraged, to be honest with you, that many companies, many CEOs recognize more than ever, and it may be self-interest, because the millennial generation has so much information, so much insight. There's so much transparency. And if a company's values and moral compass does not measure up to their own, those companies are going to be rejected. But there has to be, I think, a new understanding and a new commitment that there has to be a balance between profit and social impact. And I think we have a moral obligation to take care of our employees and the communities we serve, not only because the government is not doing as much as they should, but because the companies that are succeeding in many ways are making more money than they've made ever before, and it's time to give back.
Thank you. The veterans came up in that, and that's the other big push, both of your foundation and your company. Tell me about the veterans push.
The veterans push is, we were very fortunate to recruit Secretary Gates to Starbucks board about 4 years ago. And he came on the board, and as soon as he did, he began sensitizing me and educating me to the issues and the challenges of veterans who were coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan. The numbers are, they're tough to listen to. 2.5 million extraordinary young men and women have worn the cloth of the nation. Over 1 million have and are coming home. The 2.5 million represents less than 1% of the American population. Most Americans have no skin in the game. There's no understanding, there's no empathy, there's no compassion. They're coming home not only with no parade, but there's no real relevancy to what they have done. That has resulted, I think, in Sheri and I recognizing that in addition to what we were doing on Opportunity Youth, that we wanted to step up and make a significant commitment to the veterans community. And what we identified was the specific issue and challenge of job training and transitional services. And we've traveled all over. We've been to an Army base in Kuwait. We've been to Walter Reed. We've been to the Intrepid. We've been to Fort Bragg. And we sat down in these groups, and we heard something that we'll never forget, where a young veteran who was getting out said to us he had more anxiety about going to a job interview than he had about going back to Afghanistan.
Or another deployment.
And primarily because he had no training, no self-esteem, no confidence. So together with Daniel Pataski, our director, we started, and we're now on 7 bases, and we're providing significant traditional training. Among other things, working with General Corelli and Secretary Gates has been a great teacher for Sheri and I about making sure that there's real impact and that we can measure the investments that we've made.
Well, I think that there's a lot of crossovers between at-risk youth and soldiers coming home from war. They're greatly misunderstood. They don't know how to apply their skills to become assets in the civilian world to work. And I think most important, we don't understand who they are. I think they all have stories to tell that are in real time significant and help create who we are and how we should identify ourselves as a nation. And so the work that we're doing, particularly with jobs, but also with healthy families and helping the veterans come home and adjust, I think it changes the narrative of who we are as people, and I think it gives us an opportunity to stop something that is rampant and completely unfair that's happening in America.
We've hired about 10,000 veterans since we began this program. Yeah.
And 97,000 youth.
Starbucks has been incredibly successful, unlike a lot of other American companies, in China. And I guess you probably go there often. What is it that Starbucks is doing where Apple, Google, others are failing to break into China? What are you doing in China, and what are you learning from China?
This is a complicated question, and I know we have limited time. We've been in China for 17 years now. We've become very successful there, but we've lost money for 9 consecutive years. We have 2,500 stores. We open up more than a store a day now in China. But I'll tell you one story that I think is indicative of what we've learned. The first thing I'd say is that all the press and all the propaganda, and this is not only for the people of China. I travel all over the world. We're in over 70 countries, and I'd say by and large, universally, we all want the same thing. We want to be valued. We want to be respected. We want to be seen. We want to be understood. We were having a problem in China a number of years ago in that 87% of the 30,000 people who work for Starbucks in China are college graduates. And their families didn't believe that they went to college to work behind the counter and work at Starbucks. So our attrition rate was very, very high. Now, I go to China about once a quarter, and I probably have been to China more than any other CEO in the last 10, 20 years. And, but the more you know about China, the more you realize you don't know anything. Before Jack Ma was Jack Ma, he asked me to speak at an Alibaba meeting about the culture and values of building a company.
And this is in Shanghai?
This was in Chengdu.
Okay.
And so I go to the meeting, and I get ready to speak. Everything in China is big, a lot of people. And I look out, and there's the people in the audience, many of them were quite old. And I said to Jack, they work for you? And he said, no, those are some of the parents. We invite parents to come to the meeting. And it just hit me, how many American companies would invite parents to a meeting? Not many. Now, why are they there? So I stole something from Jack, and next year I said to our people in Seattle and in China, I want to have an annual meeting of the parents of our employees in China. And they said, Howard, something's wrong with you. I said, no, I want to have a, and they said, well, no one's going to come, and should we get a big audience, a big group, or small? If we get a two, I said, no, get the biggest thing you can find. I'm telling you, they're going to come. Anyway, to make a long story short, for the last 6 consecutive years, we have an annual meeting of the parents of our Chinese employees, and it changed everything. Because what it did is we began celebrating the family. We began celebrating their children. We began talking about our responsibility that we feel for the children, and we began educating them about what it is we were doing in China and how we want to be the kind of company that leaves China better than we found it. And that was we flipped the switch by understanding that the relevancy of what we were doing was incongruent, that it wasn't consistent with what we had to do. So my view on China, and I've been very bullish for a long time, is that there's going to be significant cyclical changes as a result of economic transformation. But it's in China's interest for most, not Facebook and other companies, but most American companies to do relatively well there. And there'll be a few companies that they will use as an example of doing it the right way. And I think we've built strong relationships with government officials, with city mayors, and we have the same ownership program in China that we have all over the world in giving our Chinese employees ownership in Starbucks, as well as a housing allowance so they don't have to travel 2 hours on a train. They can live in the city that they're working in. You can't build the kind of company that is great and enduring if the people at the lowest level don't feel as if they have a voice. That culture is about transparency and truth, that leaders need to share information, that everyone has to feel as if they have a shot at succeeding, not because of the color of their skin, their education, their sexual orientation, that everyone has the same opportunity, and that the humanity of the company is the reason that we are successful.
Wow, great, thank you. Let me open it up for questions. Yes, right there. Identify yourself, please, and stand up.
Hi, I'm Carolyn from Cincinnati, and I have to say thank you, thank you, thank you. This was insanely wonderful. And my question is, where do I sign up to help?
Wow. Sheri? Yeah. I want you to know that Sheri is from Lima, Ohio.
Okay, that didn't get much applause. It's okay.
Sheri, you got to answer the question.
No, I'm happy to answer the question. We have volunteers. Starbucks gives hundreds of volunteers at every fair. And I don't know the agenda for Ohio, but I am happy to meet you afterwards and take your name down. And when we come to one of the cities near you, we would love to have you on board. It's an enriching experience, I promise.
Let me have Daniel stand up, by the way. Daniel Pataski. Not that you need to be inundated, but those who really want to get more involved can do him. Yes, Larry.
I'm Larry Gelman from Tucson, Arizona, and a shareholder for 26 years, or thereabout. And thank you. Based on your previous comments, it sounds as though you're not optimistic about the chances of our economic system, our political system, making the changes that are really necessary to make them more like Starbucks in the foreseeable future. What do you think potential catalysts might be to turn on the light or be the spark for some sort of systemic and societal change that will make you less unique in the way you are and the values and views you have?
I wish I was that smart. Let me first off say that Starbucks is not a perfect company. We have lots of challenge and lots of issues, and to say that Starbucks would be the model for the government, I think is a stretch. But I appreciate the question and where you're going. Earlier we were talking about the Bernie Sanders movement and what drove it, and I don't think most people. This is my opinion, necessarily believe that the programs and the ideas and the aspiration that Bernie was talking about could be achieved given the economic challenges. But what they were resonating with and why he created such a unique following was it was the first time in a long time that they saw truth, authenticity, and a genuine person who was speaking about what he truly believed. And I think if you offset that, I won't make many friends here, but if you offset that with the, in my view, with the tragedy in terms of what took place within the DNC, the behind-the-scenes maneuvering of doing everything they could to discredit him, you have a situation where you saw firsthand a candidate who spoke his truth, his heart, and a party that he was part of that did everything they possibly could that was basically illegal to discredit him. And I think as long as we continue to create in the minds and the hearts of the American people, especially young people, a lack of trust and confidence in public institutions, you're right, I don't have the same level of optimism that I'd like to have. The short answer is I am optimistic because I do have great faith in the American people. And I think above all else, we are longing like never before, longing for truth with a capital T, longing for authenticity. And I think if we can begin to create a new beginning and a transformation where we're getting the truth, I think that is the beginning, I think, of a long march to a better society. And that truth has to be filled not with false promises, but promises to bring people up the ladder in which the promise of America and the American dream is accessible to everyone.
Go way back there, if I may, getting some exercise for our mic runners.
Thank you, Kelly Close from San Francisco, and thank you so much to the Aspen Institute for bringing Mr. and Mrs. Schultz here and for enabling everyone in the Roaring Fork Valley to be able to come to a forum like this. I was wondering if you could both, Mr. and Mrs. Schultz, say where do you think is the most opportunity, which industry could do the most in terms of making more companies have more of a conscience? Which industries have the most opportunity? And I would love Walter to answer that as well, if he's willing. Thank you.
The collaboration that we've done, I think, has made our the Opportunity Youth Initiative a little bit different than maybe what's being done around the country. We were surprised at how excited and committed other businesses were, like-minded businesses were, to come on board and share in giving back to this to the youth initiative. And it definitely was jump-started after the first, the Chicago Forum, where all of these businesses began to really have a much greater understanding of how talented and committed these kids could be and what their businesses could look like when they looked at them as assets rather than liability. So my short answer is that I think that when you do something and it becomes successful and you have measurables that show that we're hiring kids and the attrition rate is lower than it is of any other group of kids that we have hired, that they move on to higher jobs in the company and they mentor because of what they've learned and what their experience is. They're incredible mentors to younger kids behind them. So I just think that, moving forward, we just have to keep going. We're just getting started.
If I had to name two industries, I think the technology industry should really step up to make sure that telecommunications and technology create more equal opportunities instead of exacerbating a digital divide that's happening in this country. I also think financial service companies that some of the people were talking about by being underbanked or unbanked really lose a lot of opportunities. I think it's a great opportunity for the financial services industry to say we're going to go in and get people so that they can be banked and can be part of the financial system. Yes. I'm sorry, I'm having right here two of them, but all right. Whoever gets it first.
Dennis Ratner from Washington, D.C.
Dennis.
And Howard, I want to congratulate you for intentionalizing your culture. You've been an American business hero for decades and a true hero for us entrepreneurs. My question surrounds the aspect of your college, tuition reimbursement, and all that, but I'm a proponent of trade school education across the country. For many industries, trade schools are a vehicle to really put the inner city students to work. So what is your thoughts about the vast array of options for trade schools here in America?
First of all, thank you very much. I could not agree more with the value and the relevancy of trade schools, especially given the fact that there's a lot of open jobs in America without the training of people who are capable of fulfilling those jobs, which would be linked to the training they would get in trade schools. We had to start somewhere. We polled our people, and it was clear that 70% of our Starbucks employees, partners, were interested in a 4-year degree. We have spoken about trade schools and spoken about what we could do next. There's great interest in a graduate program now at Starbucks. Like anything else, you have to start somewhere. But I think trade schools and the value of that in our society has never been greater probably since the 50s. So I agree with you 100%. Thank you for the question.
The only thing that I would add to that is there's an organization by the name of Youth Build, and they bring kids in from the streets and they train them, they put them back in school, and they learn construction. And when they come out, they're available, they're ready for union jobs. Just to give you an example in terms of scale, so I said earlier there's 5.5 million young people that are not in school and not working. Youth Build is in 22 countries, and to date they only serve, and they do a better job than probably any other nonprofit, and they're getting 15,000 young people jobs a year. So we have work to do.
There was another question, right? Okay, over there then. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. My name is Natalie Bastiuk, and I'm from New York City. And I recently retired from the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, where I was director of social work for the school health program. Our doctors and nurses went out to every single school, a public school in New York City and all the 5 boroughs. Now, what you have shown, which I think you do incredible work, and really wonderful. My question is about the kids who are not motivated, to get jobs, because we saw so many of those, where they don't want any help. They join gangs, and I think the kids that you work with are much more motivated, but then there's that other half that isn't.
Yeah. Sheri?
Well, there's no question that there's a lot of subgroups within that at-risk or opportunity use population. And how I would answer the question is this. Sometimes motivation comes from experiencing success for the first time. And a lot of the young people that we're talking about have never had a structure around them that made them or allowed them to feel that they had capacity. A lot of the nonprofits that we work with who are really good at what they do, they go out and tell their story and they bring these kids in. And the first 2 or 3 weeks are these very difficult weeks where they have to comply. And if you comply, basically we guarantee you an opportunity, down the line for jobs and school. And what we've seen is that if you, it's about trust. If you earn the right to bring them in and they trust you, the future is theirs. And we've seen it time and time again. If you want to study an organization that's done a very good job, there's a school in Philadelphia. It's called Youth Build, and it is a charter school. And this is a woman who started this charter school, and these kids came from gangs, and they're homeless from bad foster care, and they've come in and they're graduating 250 kids a year, and they're doing an extraordinary job. And these kids are going on, to college and to work. So it can be done. You have to understand who you're dealing with, and people fall. I mean, you can't get them all, but our commitment is to get as many as we can.
I have one last question, and then I know you have a special guest that we're going to bring up. But before I do, since I'm seeing Seattle here, I just want to shout out to Mike and Jackie Bezos. There's something in the water or something in the coffee in Seattle, but they're the ones who have supported our youth opportunity programs across the country, as well as some veterans programs. So thank you both. Speaking of veterans, I'd like to ask you one last question. You've been involved with General Stan McChrystal, who we work with as well, in terms of a service year project. You've been involved in all sorts of things that could elevate our civic discourse from the poison we've been feeling this year. What are the things we should do to make the bonds of our country stronger in that way?
Well, I think it starts with young people and it starts with education. You mentioned General McChrystal. I've spent a fair amount of time with him discussing how can we create scale around a national year of service. And these are hard truths to hear, but the only kids who are doing national service today are kids who are coming from privileged white families in the right zip codes in America, because those are the only kids who can afford to go. So the question that we're trying to solve is how could you create a national stipend in which we all know that a national year of service would provide such value both to the country, to the community, and obviously to the individual. There are less people today volunteering for the Peace Corps than at the height of John F. Kennedy's administration. Sergeant Shriver wouldn't believe it. So I think that is one area where I believe that you've got to think about this in how do you create the code, how do you crack the code of scale? I don't think, to be honest with you, that these kinds of programs that are against the grain, and you got to take the road less traveled and you got to break glass to do it, are going to be done in conjunction with the government.
Well, we're very proud to help work with General McChrystal, too, to host the service year. And if anybody wants to be involved, please let us know. I know you brought a special guest, so this is cool.
Well, I did bring a special guest, and I just want to spend a few minutes just discussing who he is and why he's here. This past year, or past 2 years, we have all seen the tragic incidents that have resulted in the deaths of young African American children. And when that began to occur in Ferguson and Staten Island and Cleveland and all over the country, I was introduced to someone who has become a very dear and close friend of mine, and that is the Oscar-winning and Grammy-winning artist Common. For those of you, not yet. For those of you maybe who don't know his work, he won an Oscar with John Legend for the song Glory, and he starred in that movie. We have spent a lot of time talking about role and responsibility, what we could do together, and how we can complement each other. And when you spend time with somebody and the cameras are off and there's no one around, you get to see the person really up close. And as great an artist as he is a much better person. Is that a compliment? Okay. 3 weeks ago, he spent a weekend with our family. And over that weekend, he surprised us and he says, I want to share with you music for my new album. And our kids were there, and he played the music. And after the music was over, without exaggeration, we were all choked up with the message that he had just shared with us. 2 weeks ago, I said, would you come to Seattle? I know you're busy, and do the same thing you did for our family to the 4,000 people who work at Starbucks. Would you do that? And he said he would. Now, less than a week ago, he was in Durban, South Africa. Less than 4 days ago, he was filming a movie in London, and he flew through the night. Thank you, Mr. Crown. That's okay. And he's leaving very early in the morning, and he came here just to share this with you. And I want you to say that I love this man, I love who he is, and I'm so proud to call you my friend. Please welcome Common.
Thank you. I love you all, and I appreciate you. And Walter, thank you for having me here. When Howard calls and says, can you come do something, I show up. He can take me anywhere, and I'm going to come kick a rhyme for him. But first of all, I just would like to say I'm grateful to be here. This is my first experience here at the Aspen Institute, and I see all the great minds and the opportunities that are here to help improve the world. And at a certain point in my career, I decided that I wanted to use my music and my art to help improve the world. And it's a process, and it's a constant growth process of learning and offering who you are and what you are, and offering what you learn, and offering your perspective. But that perspective needs and deserves to be heard. And as Howard and Sheri were saying a little earlier, some people in this country who go unheard, who go unseen, who are invisible, as Ralph Ellison said before, the invisible man and woman. Well, I take it upon myself to speak up for those people and also speak with love to each and every human being that walks this earth. Well, I believe as now I've come to grow to really feel a part of America. It's funny, as Howard was talking about not trusting politicians, I grew up feeling like politics was not even related to me. It had nothing to do with me. And I think the first time I really stepped up and said I needed to do something politically was, to vote against Bush, to be honest. I'm just being honest. Well, since then I know that I can use this voice on a grassroots level, political level, corporate level. And I just want to say, man, I'm grateful. I'm very grateful. And this piece that I'm going to do is called Black America Again. And it's off the new project. This new piece of work that I've done is really inspired by Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, Between the World and Me, inspired by the play Hamilton, which let me feel even more American because I seen people of color playing George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. Yes. So at some point, as I started to write this project, I was looking at a clip of Rodney King, and most of us are familiar with the beating of Rodney King in 1993 by the LA police. And I thought it reminded me so much of what we were seeing now. And I came with this thought because I thought also about this woman named Sandra Bland, who was driving down from Illinois for a job and down in Texas, and somehow was stopped by the police because of a tail light and ended up dead with no explanation. And I said, this story keeps happening in America. And I came up with this thought about Black America Again, how the story repeats itself, and it's repeated itself through many decades and centuries now. But it's our time to rewrite this story. And I hold each and every one of us accountable, no matter what color you are. I hold myself accountable as a black man. I hold you accountable, whatever nationality, whatever your economic status. This is our country. I'm a part of America. We're a part of America. So we all are held accountable for each other. Well, this is how the song goes. Unfortunately, I don't have some of the musicians that participated with me on this, but I'm going to get into it. This is Black America again. Here we go. Here we go again. Trayvon will never get to be an older man. Black children, they childhood stole from them. Robbed of our names and our language. Stole again. Who stole the soul from black folk? Same man that stole the land from Chief Black Smoke and made the whip crackle on our back slow, made us go through the back door and raffle black bodies on the slave blocks. Now we slave to the blocks, cause on them we spray shots, leaving our own to lay in a box. Black mother's stomach staying or not. We kill each other, it's part of the plot. I wish the hating would stop. We are at war and a battle with us. I know that black lives matter, do they matter to us? These are the things we gotta discuss. The new plantation, mass incarceration. Instead of educate, they rather convict the kids. As dirty as the water in Flint the system is it a felony or a misdemeanor? Maria Sharapova making more than Serena. It took Viola Davis to say this. The roles of the help and the gangsters is really all they gave us. We need Avas, Ta-Nehisi's, and Cory Bookers. The salt of the earth to get us off of sugar and greasy foods. I don't believe the news or radio. Stereotypes we refuse. Brainwashed in the cycle to spin. We write our own story, Black America again. Hot damn Black America again. Think of Sandra Bland as I'm staring in the wind. The color of my skin, they comparing it to sin. The darker it gets, the less fairer it has been. The hate made, I inherited from them. But I ain't gonna point the finger. We got anointed singers like Nina, Marvin, Billy, Stevie. Need to hear them songs, sometimes to believe me. Who freed me? Lincoln or Cadillac? Drinking or battle raps? Or is it Godspeed that we travel at? Endangered in our own habitat. Them guns and dope, man, y'all can have it back. As a matter of fact, we them lab rats. You built the projects for, now you want your hood back. I guess if you could rap, you would express it too. That PTSD, we need professionals. You know what pressure do. It makes the pipes bust. From schools to prison, y'all, they trying to pipe us. To your political parties invite us. Instead of making voting laws to spite us. You know, we from a family of fighters, fought in your wars and our wars. You put a brother in Star Wars, maybe you need two. And then maybe then we'll believe you. See black people in the future. We wasn't shipped here to rob and shoot ya. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal, including black Americans. Peace, y'all.